The NFL draft starts April 25th. We don't have much time. This may be our last rookie rankings video until then. Now, starting off at 1, we are going to go with superflex rankings first, 1 quarterback later. We are going to have Caleb Williams. Nothing has changed. He's been pretty much penciled in to be the number 1 overall draft pick all offseason. All offseason, if you look at Vegas sportsbooks, they have told you he will be a Chicago Bear. He's minus 8,000 to be the number 1 overall pick. He's sold to be some generational level quarterback. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily mean he's guaranteed to be a top level option at the NFL level. We've seen time and time again that number 1 overall picks can still disappoint. Doesn't matter the league, doesn't matter the position. Obviously, it's in the range of outcomes that something goes wrong. But when you're pretty much penciled in to be the number 1 overall pick, you have rushing upside where, this is a quarterback that goes out there, rushes for double-digit touchdowns year in and year out. You have the job security, you have the rushing upside to make a difference in fantasy, and I think this is a great situation to step into in Chicago if you compare the Bears to most teams that are sitting with the number 1 overall pick, like the Panthers from last season. Now, going over to 2, we are going to have Marvin Harrison Jr. There's not much to discuss. He's still my wide receiver 1. I am not really going to be shying away from that. This is a wide receiver that was number 2 in college football this past year in this draft class in targets per route run. He was number 1 in this draft class in touchdown rate, number 3 in yards per route run at 3.44. He was playing alongside another Buckeye that's going to be a round 1 pick in the 2025 NFL draft at wide receiver. So he is extremely young, only 21 years old at the time of the draft. He had top level competition in college. He had all the pedigree coming out of high school. He dominated in college amongst top competition. So he checks every single box that you want to see. And if you look at updated Vegas Sportsbook odds right now, he is the favorite to be the number 4 overall pick. There's still a chance that a team trades up for JJ McCarthy. Marvin's minus 175. McCarthy's plus 175. But as it stands right now, it looks like Marvin will most likely be an Arizona Cardinal, obviously a team that could use that top weapon. Now, really the only conversation that you can have between these guys at the top is from a superflex perspective. If you're in a 10-team league where everybody on average is already going to have 3 to 4 starting quarterbacks, where the quarterback value is going to be diluted just given the supply and demand. If you are in a 10-team superflex league, sure, maybe you can take Marvin over Caleb just because supply and demand of the quarterback position. But please understand, if you're in a 12-team league, I do really think you should be going Caleb Williams. And if you're in a 14-team Superflex league, I actually think you can look at the next few quarterbacks. We're going to go Jaden Daniels at 3. With Daniels, quarterback with all the rushing upside in the world. I don't necessarily think we need to sell you on that. You go and look at this past year. The man had 1,100 rushing yards at LSU. If you look at what he just did with counting stats, 40 passing touchdowns to 4 interceptions. 3,800 passing yards off a 72% completion rate. On paper, unbelievable. Obviously, you had Neighbors. Obviously, you had Rome. I'm never going to pretend to be some expert quarterback scout, but what we can do is we can look at rushing upside, draft capital, which indicates job security. And if we go over and look at Jaden Daniels, right now he's the favorite to be the number 2 overall pick to the Washington Commanders. So if an NFL front office and NFL scouting department signing off that they would prefer him over Drake May, plus, he has more rushing upside. At this point, if Daniels does go at 2 overall, I think you have to take him over May. Now, Drake May is the favorite to go number 3 overall. I'm going to have him at 4 in our Superflex rankings. He doesn't have the same level rushing upside that you're going to get with Daniels, but he still has a considerable amount of upside. This is a quarterback that ran for almost 700 rushing yards 2 years ago at UNC. And if he goes number 3, the issue is that this just may be a horrendous situation. So I could see a situation where if the New England Patriots do decide to pull the trigger at 3, then all of a sudden Malik Neighbors could actually jump up to 4 in our rankings, because Neighbors is currently the favorite to go to the Los Angeles Chargers at 5. If we're looking at Vegas Sportsbooks, the number 5 overall pick is currently plus 225 to be Malik Neighbors, plus 275 to be Marvin Harrison. That's the situation in which maybe at 4, instead of the Cardinals taking Harrison, a team trades up for McCarthy, which could happen. At least that's what Vegas Sportsbooks are telling us. Obviously, Harrison would go to the Chargers. In that instance, everything's thrown out the window. But right now, Neighbors is the favorite. This is a phenomenal prospect in his own right. If he was the wide receiver in pretty much any other draft class that didn't have Marvin Harrison Jr., he would be the number one guy. I mean, if we go through and look at his metric profile, number 4 in this class in targets per route run. And this is alongside Brian Thomas Jr., alongside another wide receiver that's going to go round 1 in this year's NFL draft. He was number 1 in yards per route run. Number 1 in yards per team pass attempt. Number 1 with his PFF grade. Not to mention that he is going to be 20 years old at the time of the NFL draft. He's going to play his rookie season at 21. And we just had that in-depth video where we looked at 21-year-old rookies that were drafted in round 1 of the NFL draft and looked at their expected hit rate. And this is where the superstars come from. So I think you can be super, super excited about Neighbors. And like I said, if he does find himself with the Chargers, I think he can move up to 4, even in superflex. Now, Rome's going to be our next guy. Rome did stay 4 years at Washington. So, I mean, if you are looking at a historical model, he's not necessarily going to pop like Neighbors did. But like I said, with Rome, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he played alongside with 2 other guys that are going to go top 100 in the NFL draft, and McMillan as well as Polk. Plus, this is someone that didn't get to play his freshman season, with Washington only playing 4 games due to COVID. We go ahead and look at where he's most likely to go. He currently is plus 350 to be going to the Giants at pick 6. He's plus 1,400 to be going pick 5. So it looks like the Chargers aren't going to really have too much interest in Rome. But if we're looking at the odds of him going inside the top 5 picks, he's plus 1,200. The odds of him going inside the top 10 picks, he's minus 1,600. So it's pretty much guaranteed to be a top 10 NFL draft pick. Film guys absolutely love him. I mean, he was very productive alongside 2 other wide receivers that, like we said, will go top 100 in the draft here. Now, of course, if you're wondering where we're pulling all this wide receiver data, Corey posted, in my mind, by far and away the best rookie wide receiver database that you're going to find. It's on the site. Obviously, there are a ton of rookie draft guides out there. You got a rookie draft guide from the Domain guys. You have one from the Stock Exchange guys. You have one from the Dynasty Land guys. Plus those rookie databases, plus my Dynasty rookie rankings, plus all the rookie rankings from all your favorite creators, Dynasty Trade Calculator, Dynasty Trade Finder, and Dynasty Team Analyzer, where you can put in your exact league. I mean, all you got to do is link it with Sleeper, and then we're going to analyze it across the board. It's all in flockfantasy.com if somehow you're not already a member. Links in the description, links in the comment section. Code FLOCK will hook you up 30% off any sub. Plus, yours truly will break down your Dynasty team with code FLOCK. But moving over to our next guy at 7, we are going to have JJ McCarthy here. If you are looking at McCarthy, right now, he is probably the biggest riser of the offseason. I mean, if we're looking at what Vegas sportsbooks are telling us, and like I said, I want to reiterate, I have never and probably will never claim to be a quarterback expert, guru, scout. No, we look at draft capital, we look at rushing upside, we look at the situation they're stepping into, and we try to make the best fantasy football decision we can based off that. But if we're looking at the probability of being a top 5 pick, Vegas sportsbooks currently have JJ McCarthy minus 300. Minus 300. McCarthy looks like he will most likely be going inside the top 5 picks of the NFL draft. He's minus 1,600 to go inside the top 10 picks of the NFL draft. If you have that capital, you have the extended job security. He's not going to be Jaden Daniels running the football, of course, but I still think he can pick up 20 rushing yards per game, which should raise his floor and ceiling combo just a bit in fantasy. Obviously, where there's smoke, there's fire, and a lot of people are coming out and saying that Minnesota looks like they're interested. And if that's the case, I mean, there's not a better situation you could step into in fantasy football. Now, going over to our next guy, Brock Bowers, looks like he's a borderline guy to go top 10 in the NFL draft at this point. If you're looking at the updated Bowers odds, he's currently plus 105 to go inside the top 10 picks of the draft. I know a lot of people want to see him go to like Cincinnati in middle of round 1, but nonetheless, phenomenal tight end prospect. No, he's not what Kyle Pitts was as a prospect. He doesn't have the same athletic profile, but still hyper productive at Georgia starting at 18 years old. If you're playing in a tight end premium format, it's going to depend on your league settings. If it's just 1.5 points per reception for the tight end position, I'm probably not going to be moving him up anywhere over Rome, over McCarthy. However, if you have to start 2 tight ends in your league, especially if it's a start 2 tight end league plus 1.5 point per reception for the tight end position, then at that point, I could see him jumping up to 6. But almost in no world does he get inside the top 5, regardless of your format. Our next guy will be Brian Thomas Jr. Well, it looks like he's locked in to be a round 1 pick. Obviously has the size, has the athletic profile that you're looking for. The production profile is good, not great. You can give him, a considerable amount of slack, though, considering the fact that he had to play alongside Malik Neighbors. He had to play alongside a wide receiver that looks to be an elite level prospect. I don't want to say generational. I think people really overuse that term, but looks to be someone that would be a wide receiver 1 overall in the majority of classes. So the production profile for Brian Thomas Jr. is obviously going to be thrown out of whack, but people love him on film. He has the athletic profile. He's pretty much penciled in to be a round 1 pick. And those teams at the end of round 1 are very interesting in terms of the potential landing spots you have. Now, going over to what we have with our next few guys, we're going to be looking at AD Mitchell, Xavier Worthy. They are jumping over Troy Franklin for me. With AD Mitchell, this is a wide receiver that I want to reiterate. The production profile is not bad. It is horrible. And I mean horrible here. Let's see if I can go over and pull this up. Now, of course, we are going to put some context to it. I don't want to just clown on the guy, but 18.5% of his targets percent of his routes he drew a target on. That is one of the worst marks in this entire draft class. You can come out and you can say, no, Mason, AD Mitchell is a great, blah, blah, blah. It was just yours. Quinn was horrible. And Quinn very may well be bad. Maybe if AD Mitchell was in a better room, it may be a better quarterback play. He would have been significantly more productive. But it's not that he just wasn't getting accurate targets. It's not that he just, was getting garbage targets that no wide receiver would be able to catch. He wasn't drawing targets. And that is one of the most concerning things. 1.68 yards per route run. This would be bad if you were doing this in the NFL. To be doing this in college football and to be a great NFL wide receiver is almost unheard of. This was second last in this draft class. 1.78 yards per team pass attempt. This was 23rd in this draft class. And a 74 PFF grade, which was 22nd in this draft class. So this past year at Texas, of course, hook 'em horns, I am rooting for AD Mitchell a ton. He was one of the least productive receivers in this entire class, and he has red flags all over his profile. Now, with that being said, film grinders love what they see on the TV screen. They love his vertical ability. He killed the NFL Combine, and he looks like he's penciled in to be a round 1 NFL draft pick. If we go over and look at Vegas sportsbooks right now, and odds to be, a round 1 pick. Currently, AD Mitchell is, let me find this, minus 600. Xavier Worthy's minus 120. Ladd is plus 300. Keon Coleman's plus 380. Is Xavier Legette's plus 425. And Troy Franklin's plus 550. So even if, say, I had, I don't know, a wide receiver like Troy Franklin with a much better production profile, even if I want to put him over Adonai based off the combine, based off the projected NFL draft capital, I simply can't. But I will remind you, it's very scary to just be signing off on AD Mitchell as some elite level prospect. Now, Xavier Worthy is going to be our next guy. With Worthy, the production profile actually looks a little bit better than Mitchell. Obviously, you have the monster 40-yard dash. This is arguably the fastest receiver to ever come in the NFL. Obviously, that's not necessarily true. 40-yard dash times don't mean that he is faster than Tyreek, but nonetheless, extremely fast player, a little bit undersized, where I do think he can make a bigger difference from an NFL perspective than he could from a fantasy football perspective, because historically speaking, we've seen these guys that go out there and be field stretchers, elevate the play of the overall offense, given the fact that they can create separation for guys underneath, while at the same time, maybe they're not the ones coming away with 9, 10 targets a game. Now, Troy Franklin will be our next guy, wide receiver 7. I think there's a strong argument to move Franklin down behind Bo Nix based off the projected capital for Bo Nix at the moment, where he looks like he may end up being a round 1 NFL draft pick. I love the production profile from Troy Franklin. He's a little bit undersized at the combine. I know that did scare a lot of people off. I think the production profile is a lot more appealing than what you have with Xavier Worthy, what you have with A.D. Mitchell. But the difference is, well, I think we have to have Franklin behind these guys, is A.D. Mitchell's guaranteed to be a round 1 pick. Worthy looks like he's likely to be a round 1 pick. And Franklin looks like he's a long shot to be a round 1 pick. Now, Bo Nix will be our next guy. He's about 50-50 to go round 1 in the NFL draft right now. I mean, if you're going to be that like Will Levis range, right, where you're at the very top of round 2, it's a range of quarterback where you're probably going to get your chance to start. But if you don't do anything right away, then you're probably getting let go of the next season. So super short leash. But I mean, hell, we've seen those guys come from round 2 that maybe are on that super short leash initially. If they blow up and that job's theirs, then obviously it's one of the best investments you can make in a superflex rookie draft. We're going to go Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson, back-to-back here. So if I was in a redraft league, right, if I'm in an underdog best ball draft, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Benson over Brooks just because in the short term, obviously, Brooks coming off an injury, year 1. Maybe we're a little bit more hesitant with that production. Plus Trey Benson, I mean, we are in a great spot in terms of what we've been able to see from his athletic testing at the NFL Combine, what we've seen from his size, yada, yada, yada. Jonathan Brooks, phenomenal receiving back at Texas. I think most people would agree that he'd be the running back 1 if he was fully healthy. And since this is a Dynasty video, I think we should go through and more so project out the long term, not necessarily how we expect these guys and their value to move in the short term. Now, going over to our next player, we're going to go Michael Penix. I mean, with Penix, you could possibly go ahead, move him up there with Bo Nix. Like I said, I want to reiterate, I'm not sitting here acting like I'm some expert quarterback scout. With these quarterbacks, the majority of what we're going to be looking for is rushing upside, landing spot, NFL draft capital. And Penix does look like he's a little less likely than Bo Nix for him to end up going round 1 of the draft. Ladd will be our next guy. With Ladd, production profiles very worrisome of what you had with Georgia as well. I mean, this is a wide receiver that most likely is not going to go round 1 of the draft. I know film guys absolutely love him. I think A.D. Mitchell and Ladd, they're 2 guys that the production profile is very bad. They don't really have an excuse in my mind of why they didn't produce early on in their careers at Georgia, why we didn't even see the production in their final seasons in college. But the film guys are in absolute love over these players. Ladd, maybe you have a little bit more of an excuse given the fact that obviously this was a player that was injured his final season. Keon Coleman will be our next guy. Keon was sold to be some top-level athlete, goes to the combine. He's big, but he's not an elite athlete, right? Not at least what he was sold going into the combine. So if you look at his NFL draft projection right now, does look like he's falling down a considerable amount. I mean, previously, a bunch of people thought he was going to go round 1. Now to go round 1, he currently, I believe, what did we say earlier? Is plus 380. So it looks like he's going to be more so day 2 pick. And the production profile is not great with Keon either. To Tavion Sanders coming in with these rookie tight ends, it's always so difficult to project out what you're going to get. If you're in, say, a tight end premium format, I wouldn't mind if you wanted to move him ahead of Keon. If you're in a league where you have to start 2 tight ends, plus you're getting 1.5 points per reception for the tight end position, I think you can maybe move him as high as like the running back 1, running back 2 range that we have here. This is a tight end that at Texas, I mean, obviously had a ton of target competition. You had A.D. Mitchell, you had Xavier Worthy, you had Jonathan Brooks for half the season. So, I mean, I don't want to sit here and count his production and lack of production too much against him. Next few guys, we're going to go with Jalen Wright here at 20. If you're looking at Jalen Wright, I mean, he's young. He's an okay wide receiver, had 22 receptions his final season at Tennessee. And he was a decent a decent running back at the NFL Combine. If we're going to go over and look at the odds currently of the first running back off the board, you have Trey Benson plus 160, Jonathan Brooks plus 225, and then Jalen Wright plus 300. But we did just cover in the recent video that we had, historically speaking, if you're betting on 21-year-old rookie running backs that go day 2 of the NFL draft, I mean, since the year 2000, it's been a pretty good bet. Now, next guy will be Blake Corum. I have no idea what to do with him, right? I mean, according to Vegas Sportsbooks, the most likely landing spot that we have at the moment is going to be that he goes to the Los Angeles Chargers. If he finds himself with the Chargers, immaculate, he will be moving up these rankings dramatically. However, this is a super old rookie. This is someone that doesn't necessarily have a great profile. And you're almost drafting him based off just a projected landing spot. Xavier Legette will be our next guy in here. Production profile, great for his final season at South Carolina, but it takes him 5 years to do anything. Seems like a 23-year-old rookie coming in. I mean, we went through, we did the historical research. The vast majority of the time that you have, I mean, a wide receiver not doing anything until their 23-year-old season, then all of a sudden coming from nowhere seemingly, and then getting drafted day 2 of the NFL. That's not necessarily a profile that you want to be chasing. Now, of course, if you believe that you have a super solid excuse for Legette and why he didn't produce early on in his career at South Carolina and why he's having to come out at so old, then obviously you can move him up if you want to. I would be completely fine if you want to move him over Blake. Braylon Allen will be our next guy, a super young running back coming out of Wisconsin that was also sold to be a top-end athlete. Obviously, the man looks like just a straight-up monster. We're going to go Malachi Corley, a great production profile. The issue is it's primarily just used in the screen game. Roman Wilson, older wide receiver, primarily tied to a run-first offense with J.J. McCarthy. And then Johnny Wilson, I know we're throwing him in here at the very bottom, and I know this is not someone that many people talk about, but I mean, if I had to go through and point out a round 3, round 4 guy that could be a little bit interesting right now, Johnny Wilson, I don't want to say dominated, but it was more productive than Keon Coleman this past year at Florida State. So I think you could make an argument, okay, well, this is a wide receiver that the production profile is not bad. Plus, if Keon ends up being like a top 50 pick in the NFL draft, he had some serious target competition. I mean, obviously, you're just kind of hoping that he is a big-bodied guy that comes down with some touchdowns, maybe even transitions over to tight end a bit. But going over to the one quarterback rankings, we'll just flash them up here. There's not much to say. I probably wouldn't be taking quarterbacks until we get to pick 6. I think the top 5 guys are Harrison, Neighbors, Rome, Bowers, Brian Thomas. Then I think you have your run of quarterbacks between the Thomas and A.D. Mitchell tier. Obviously, it's going to be very dependent on how your one quarterback league values these guys. I know that's going to be varying league to league, of course. Then I think we're going to go throw J.J. McCarthy at 16, like as an early round 2 pick. And then I'm not interested in Michael Penix. I'm not interested in Bo Nix inside the top 2 rounds in a one quarterback league. But I think that's all I got for you. Hope that you enjoyed this video. Hope that you can go down in the comment section and let me know why I'm so stupid. But thank you again for everything. Appreciate you. If you want to check out all the rookie data you could ever want, if you want to get all my rookie rankings updated through the NFL draft, if you want to get our Dynasty Trade Calculator, our Dynasty Trade Finder, if you want to get the Dynasty Team Analyzer where you can go through, submit your team, and then pretty much you can see how everybody views it on the sites with our exact league rankings. It's all on flockfantasy.com. Code FLOCK, get you hooked up with 30% off any sub. Plus, yours truly will break down your Dynasty team in a podcast with code FLOCK. But thank you again. Appreciate you. Hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you out with the video tomorrow.